Rob, my question is this:
I think it's ambassador to you.
Ambassador. Formally, I should call you ambassador?
No, I'm happy with Rob. I just thought I was going to give you shit, man.
Ambassador.
I just wanted to throw a fastball.
I caught it. All right. Call him ambassador. Understood.
Ambassador Rahm Emanuel has been a staple of the Democratic Party for decades. He was an advisor to President Clinton, a chief of staff to President Obama, a member of Congress, the mayor of Chicago, and most recently, the ambassador to Japan. Clearly an esteemed career. But for some, Ambassador Rahm Emanuel represents everything wrong with the current Democratic Party. He's been accused of being too cozy with big donors, taking part in the revolving door between Wall Street and DC, and letting police brutality go unpunished. So I sat down with Ambassador Rahm Emanuel to talk about where the Democrats need to go, whether he's the guy to take them there, and to ask him the question I'm pretty sure he didn't expect. Did he create AOC?
I'm going to start with the spiciest one right now.
What's that?
Mr. Rahm Emanuel,
Yeah.
Are you running for president?
Well, we'll see. Look, my standard view is, first and foremost, I'm not done with public service, and I'm hoping it's not done with me. Second is having worked for presidents, if I can bring something to it that I think is distinct, and I do think thinking about what I've talked about, which is the American dream. It's become unaffordable. The system is rigged against people. And I don't see other people doing it. And then there's a part of me also, to be honest, which is I'm tired of the party acting like Thelma Louise, and I'm sitting in the back seat and watching it gun it for the cliff. So there's a lot of things that will go into it. I haven't decided. And if I told you I did, I'd be lying. If I told you I wasn't thinking about it, I'd be lying. So that's where it is.
Okay. I appreciate
There's kind of
the
head is one place, the heart is one place. And on Tuesday, they flip places. But I'm mulling it. Obviously it's a big decision.
Yeah.
Look, a lot of the other people thinking about it like me, they're friends, they're people I admire at a certain level. But I think from local government to congressional to the White House to overseas, there's an experience. I'm 6 for 6 in my winning. I've never lost.
Yeah.
Worked on a number of nationals, and I think the overriding ideology for the Democratic Party, while there's a philosophical piece to it, has to also be winning.
Let's talk about a 6 for 6. So for the audience that isn't aware with who Rahm Emanuel is, at 33, you were a senior advisor to President Clinton for 5 years. You were an Illinois congressman, 6 years. You were chief of staff for President Obama, obviously. Then you were mayor of Chicago for 8 years. And then you were recently the ambassador to Japan. In this current moment that we're living in right now, people feel very strongly about career politicians. They go, I hate career politicians.
They should.
Does that hurt your feelings?
No. I mean, look, at one level, again, I feel very fortunate that both the child of an immigrant and the grandchild of an immigrant could end up 30 feet from the Oval Office twice.
Totally.
And get elected to the city that welcomed my grandfather in 1914, et cetera. So at one level, no. But, in the last 30 years, and this is somewhat my condemnation of, and I'm responsible, I was around, Washington let people down.
Yeah.
We as long as we were okay, as long as our kids were okay, the system got rigged. And I don't blame them for feeling like, we pay you guys and all you do is take care of yourselves. And as you and I are sitting here today, you look at kind of the plane from Qatar, you look at Supreme Court justices taking private jets with people who have cases in front of them. You have a congressman trading on stocks. So at one level, they're kind of like smart. On another level, yes, I get the cynicism, and I do think part of our politics should be about earning their trust back.
Sure. I mean, look, things are in a...
So I don't get insulted.
No. And you have very much, the stuff that I've been reading about you recently, the op-eds that you've been writing, the appearances that you've been making, you're in this very reflective mode. But I want to, for the audience, let's take people where you are right now. One of the things people love you for is your analysis, okay? So clearly Donald Trump is doing a lot of crazy things. We are in a digital era. I'm going to list you just a series of things that have happened in the past, let's say 70 days. And I would love your opinion on them in, let's say, 15 seconds. Okay?
Oh, is this like Dancing with the Stars? Yeah. I like the music. Outfit's okay, but his left foot's dragging.
Precisely.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Here we go. Tariffs.
Wrong-headed.
Okay. Doge.
Total waste, and it's going to cost us more.
Qatari Air Force One. You just mentioned.
Don't give it up. I want the president to keep determined to keep it.
Okay.
Because it's the gift that's going to keep on giving politically.
Interesting. Ending birthright citizenship.
Give me a break. Not even a one-year law student knows that that's right.
Shaming Zelensky for not wearing a tie. You remember that moment?
Yeah, well, you should have seen some of the other guests that he had in, like from El Salvador, just a week later.
Well, let's talk about that. Sending random people to El Salvador gulags.
Yeah, but it's not like everybody else was wearing a respectable outfit. I did it social media. So give me the gulag.
Sending random people to El Salvador gulags.
Yeah, it's a violation of what it means to be an American.
Rejecting basically all refugees except, I guess, white South African refugees.
Afrikaners.
Yeah. Well, the white ones.
I like to come back at that only for one reason, because he actually says stuff on immigration that he's horrible on the illegal.
Okay.
His words about legal actually reveal, I think, more.
Interesting. And tell me more about that.
Well, I thought we were doing the fast
round.
Okay, we could get the break when the host wants to break.
Well, that was it. We actually got to the last one. There it is. Yeah.
Do you ever listen to him? He has obnoxious things about illegal immigration. Nothing that I would approach or like. But he always says, yeah, I'm ready to talk about legal immigration. And obviously in our politics today, you can't even broach that. And I say that both on a substantive level, because if you take a step back, Ronald Reagan's the last guy that passes and signs into law in 1986, the Simpson-Mazzoli immigration bill. Mm-hmm. Every president since has, with chewing gum, some rubber bands and some ropes, has tried to figure out through executive order how to maneuver around, because what happened in 1986 and where we are in 2024, that's 50 plus years. It changed. And it's a broken system.
What did that critical moment in 86 mean for the listeners who aren't
1986 is when Ronald Reagan signs into law an immigration bill. What the Republicans hate about that now in retrospect is it basically took people that were here, quote unquote, illegally, and gives them the right to citizenship, even though they broke the law to get here. And that's what's driven them crazy. They also think that about the 11 plus million that are here right now.
Gotcha.
On the other hand, establishes pathways for citizenship, establishes what's illegal. In all his mishigas and all his craziness around that Trump says, he does constantly hold out this, well, we should change and update our legal immigration so it reflects where we are. He says that. Now,
what is the subtext of that in your analysis?
The system is broken. And I would say this about, like, as a former mayor that created a sanctuary city. A sanctuary city for a mayor is no different than a president signing executive orders. You got a bunch of issues that are dumped on you. You're trying to figure out how to actually operate this. The system, both from legal to illegal, is fundamentally not reflective of where the world is today in 2024, as opposed to where it was when the last time we wrote the rules in 1986.
Right.
And I do believe, and then let me get to the political part of me.
Sure.
There's a division inside the other side.
Okay.
There's the Elon Musk pro-immigration.
Yes.
And the Steve Bannon and Steve Miller shut it all, legal and illegal, are the same. If you're in the opposition, your strategy is to figure out what unites you and divides the other side.
Okay.
And to me, now I get the heat, the distance, given what he does about illegal immigration, what he's doing with sending people against their due process rights to El Salvador. There's a part that you could actually divide the other side and unite ours. I think there's more consensus on the Democratic side on what is, quote unquote, undocumented or illegal immigration.
Yes.
And there's actually also a huge consensus between Democrats, independents, and what I'll call the old Bush Republicans on legal. And it would leave them between the Elon Musk wing of their party and the Steve Bannon part of their party fighting and killing each other. And I'm pro them fighting and killing each other. I just want to be, I'm on record.
Sure.
That's the fighting and killing I'm for.
Yeah.
So that's what, but I just say that when I said at this fast round,
yeah,
you know, he makes so much noise, it's impossible.
Right.
Okay. And I get the division because he is so ugly in his rhetoric, the demonization of people, the demonization of groups of people, etc.
Yeah.
But there's a political opportunity there to set the Republicans back and to create a space for Democrats to have a...
How would you frame that large kind of Venn diagram that you've talked about, that you said, hey, a lot of Americans are in agreement?
Well, you know,
in regards to this thing when it comes to immigration, and then I want to get to what you've been talking about.
Two things that are fascinating about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He moves the needle on a lot of things, but if you ever look at Donald Trump 1.0 and Donald Trump 2.0, the country's opinions on both legal immigration and trade dramatically go against Donald Trump within 90 days of his presidency because people react to the way he is doing what he's doing, etc. Immigration's like that. Look at today's numbers versus where they were 5 months ago. Now, the X on border, X on getting criminals out, but they're not where they are just eliminating people's due process and, chasing people and basically violating their rights, or chasing kids out of schools, or chasing parents at their workplace. So there's a lot of opportunity, both policy-wise and politically. And just the problem is he makes it almost toxic and impossible to have a conversation with him about it.
The Dems are currently saying, you know what, and I think Schumer has gone on to say this as well, of, hey, let's take a step back. Let Donald Trump kind of destroy Gotham City. And then when everybody turns against him, that's when we strike for the jugular. The proverbial jugular.
So look, everybody talks about elections in slightly, they mix and match, and that's a mistake. A midterm, when one party owns both sides, is a referendum on their leadership. That's what it is. It's not about us. In my view, some people want to attack Democrats. Democrats want to attack. No. It's right there. It's a rubber stamp Republican Congress. And you put it right on them. Because it's very clear, if you look at independent voters, you look at slight moderate Republicans, and you look at Democrats, they want somebody to be a checkmate on what they consider this chaos, using that in abbreviated form.
Sure.
2028, this is a referendum in 2026 and in 2025. 2028 is a choice. That's a different dynamic and a different set of what we have to do as a party.
Yeah,
so that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, you are the opposition. Don't claim you can do certain things you can't do. Now, we got to pick and choose where our fights are. There's one right now we can talk about on the tax bill a little later that illustrate something about them and something about us. The reason I'm big right now into ethics, one, it's the gift that will keep on giving. Two, Trump will not give in on this. And three, it makes him the establishment, us the change agent. One of the things I worry about in all these fights is Donald Trump is trying to be the change agent, and we're trying to be restore and hold the institution. We're the status quo. That is not a place in this politics right now. You do not want to be the status quo. You want them, the Republican Congress specifically, to be the three monkeys. See no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. And the ethics that's plain, Chinese investment in his Bitcoin business while he's negotiating tariffs for $300 million and a company that's associated with the Chinese Communist Party, this is the gift that will keep on giving. Now, I am a product of my experience back in 2006 when I was responsible for taking the House and having Nancy become Speaker. We created a web diagram called The House That Tom DeLay Built.
Okay.
And it had members and their corruption. Now, when we did it, everybody thought, what is this? They thought it was cute, funny, but like, why are you... And over the cycle, it built to a crescendo. And then you had both what was going on in Iraq War, what was going on with individual members in Congress, and it became a narrative that Washington was corrupt, and you had to change it.
So you had the headshots up, and then you're like,
Yeah,
all right,
here's what Bob Nate did.
Here's the biodata.
Here's what Duke
Here's the
Cunningham.
biodata of corruption.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and I think, this is my view, that Donald Trump will not give up this plane. He loves the opulence, not a chance. And he will not stop, and I do think there's a for sale sign on the front lawn of the White House. It's a cash and carry business. And I'm from Chicago. I got a low threshold. This is something that people are not used to. But the other subtext beyond the corruption is it makes the Republicans, who won't check him and won't stop it, B, it makes him the establishment and us the change agent to Washington clean the swamp. And to me, that's a big piece of the politics at this moment, this time.
You have been spitting hot fire about the dissolving of the American dream. You have been really talking about how the middle class has been getting the shaft.
Yes.
Okay.
Not the shot, the shaft.
The shaft. Now, how big is the shaft and where is it coming from?
Okay, look, I don't know a lot about you. I know what I read, and
Sure.
You know what you read about me. This is the first time we've actually set eyes on each other.
Sure.
You and I are, in many ways, the epitome, and our spouses, the epitome of the American dream.
100%.
Come, immigrant families, get an education,
Yeah.
rise up, own a home, have kids, save for their retirement, save for their education, your retirement, healthcare. We're set.
Yeah.
And your kids are younger than mine. Mine are grown up. Two are in the Navy. One's going off to University of Chicago business and laws. They're good.
Yes.
And they're going to be good. And they're going to succeed. The problem is, for the last 30 years, as long as we were okay, we didn't really care. And the American dream has been unaffordable. It's inaccessible. And that should be unacceptable to us. And we were comfortable, and the system and the American people have figured out is rigged. Their kids are getting the shaft, and our kids are getting a shot. And that's wrong. And I am upset about it because the moment, if you go back also in politics, and I was not to drop names.
Sure.
But I was with President Clinton and Hillary Clinton the other day. I told them we're coming in town. You can almost track exactly when the American dream started to get out of reach. Is exactly when our politics became unstable.
Totally.
And the two of them, those lines cross, and I think there's something fundamentally flawed that certain people, and I include myself, can have multiple homes, and other people can't get a starter home.
Sure.
And there's ideas. I grew up my dad was a pediatrician, my mother was an RN nurse, and what was then called nuclear, but it's basic radiology.
Right.
When you asked for a second opinion,
yes,
it was a doctor, not a health insurance bureaucrat, who said, no, you can't have that procedure, or that doesn't get covered. This is insane. And so I say, self-aware, you and I, and more importantly than that, our children will be okay. They will navigate this system to a success.
Yes.
That is not happening. And when that doesn't happen and people feel like you and I will be okay and our kids okay, but their kids won't, and it's set up for us to succeed and for them to fail, well, then the jig is up, and then they throw all the cards over the side of the table.
Do you have a theory of how we got here? Because to me,
do I have a theory?
Well, there's Red Hat MAGA, but you were a part of I call it almost Blue Hat MAGA, which was the Clinton era, 92 to 97, Clinton era budget surplus years. I think that is very much for the Democratic Party establishment. This is a hot take. This is my own hot take. Of those were the good old days. Those were the days where
peace and prosperity does have its own seductiveness.
Yes.
I always used to, some people on the left, I said, was it the peace or the prosperity that pissed you off? Which one? Okay.
Right.
So now here's what I think. I think there are three seminal moments that really bust everything.
Okay.
And it deals slightly with the American dream, but it deals more with the system being rigged. Okay? 2002, we go to war in Iraq, built on yellow cake from Niger. We spend $1 trillion, lose thousands and thousands of fellow Americans' lives, and other people are maimed for life. And not one SOB responsible for that is ever held accountable. They're on boards, they teach at universities, they have papers published in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. Nobody held accountable who created the single worst foreign policy disaster in America in 200 plus years. 6 years later, the financial system built on liar's loans below people's livelihood, their life savings in their homes, and the pricks, and I use that as a technical term, are begging, saying, what? I get my bonus. Why should I have it? Why should the government tell me? As we're bailing their sorry asses out.
Right. This is the 08-09 financial crisis.
Yes. Thank you for abbreviating what that is.
Well,
that could be at any good time.
Well, yeah. I mean,
so those two, and again, no banker is held accountable. Now, some of us in the Obama White House were calling to deal with what I called Old Testament justice, that the system needed some relief of literally taking a banker onto the South Lawn and pummeling them live on cable TV.
Holy shit.
Well, third then is COVID.
Yes.
And the disruption to people's lives that never has returned.
Right.
And professionals and doctors and healthcare who really didn't know what was going on. Nobody did, for that matter.
Right.
But acting as they did.
Yeah.
And telling people how to live their lives, etc. So you have these three seminal moments that lives, livelihood, and and how they live their lives all get disrupted.
Right.
And nobody at the top ever said either A, I'm sorry, or B, was held accountable. Yeah. And so to me, those are the moments in which our politics, now does it explain why people don't have a down payment on a home, etc.? It doesn't, but the system of having one set of rules for you and I, or people that are kind of in the elite or the establishment versus everybody else, is when the anger boils.
And here's the interesting thing, where in my generation and people younger than me, a lot of people that listen and watch the show, AOC has said that those kind of Obama extension Bush tax cuts that happened in 2010, that was a radicalizing moment for her.
I felt incensed about the extension of the Bush tax cuts during the Obama presidency. It was actually very radicalizing and shocking to me when I saw that when I was in college. It was that. I was like, how could we reward the people who did this and abandon the millions of people who've been victimized by this massive economic crime.
Do you now see that as a mistake? Do you feel like, oh my God, we created AOC? Do you see that?
No, I don't think it. Look, she and I don't agree on all the solutions, so we can come up with that.
Right.
But on the basic critique of what's wrong with the system,
Right.
we have 100%. Now, look, my solution when I'm mayor is free pre-K, universal pre-K, free kindergarten, first city to create free community college, raise the minimum wage, etc. So the critique and even some of the policies we agree. I don't know if I would say 2010, because I don't think 2010 is as egregious as a financial meltdown.
Sure.
I don't think the 2010 tax cuts. Now, I was also back running for mayor at that time, but I don't think they stack up against the Iraq war and the lies.
Totally.
I don't want to get into when did it really, really, really start.
What was the cherry
but for
on top?
her,
Sure.
Yeah, for her, it may have been 2010 that crystallized it. Okay.
Yeah.
That may be it. For me, it may be a different moment, etc. But I will say the critique, both, and to me, this is very specifically, and it gets to your first question. What does it take to restore confidence that people have, not that they're guaranteed the American dream, they're guaranteed to have a shot at the American dream. What would it take? And that's the North Star we as Democrats, this is my North Star. That is the most important thing, both economically and politically. Now, there's other pieces to fill in on that about, I have certain things on education, on national service, et cetera, we would talk about. But to me, that's the core critique and that's the core responsibility.
I remember when you were rumored to be the head of the DNC, this is what AOC said. Okay, so AOC tweets this out. But I want to know your analysis on this, because to go to the root of the problem, she goes, there's a disease in Washington of Democrats who spend more time listening to the donor class than working people. If you want to know the seed of the party's political crisis, that's it. The DNC needs an organizer who gets people, not someone who sends fish heads in the mail.
Well,
in her analysis here, is she
fish,
identifying the right problem?
Well, I kind of thought the fish was pretty good.
The fish
first of
was
all, it's in 1980, close to 50 years ago, but it was actually against the political class. Because
really?
I sent it to a pollster that screwed up a race, Jack Kemp's seat. Yeah. So
no way.
Yeah, it wasn't just I sent the fish to anybody. I sent it to a member of, quote unquote, the political class that screwed up. So I kind of agree with her. It is a problem because I'm the one person that's actually spoke up and said, you guys suck. We just give all this money to you and keep losing. Yeah. So I'm not against the fish.
What about
no, but on the serious.
Yeah, but on the serious thing. But but for real, do you felt like that was the right move to do, or were you just inspired by The Godfather and you're like, let's send a message?
Well, a number of us signed it, but I was kind of in my 20s, so there was if that counts for youthful indiscretion, that was it.
Yeah.
But
a bit of a cowboy, bit of a rabble rouser.
It's definitely a line in every profile. And it definitely fills it out. And, and guess what? He's not in politics anymore.
It worked.
All right. Well, look.
Do you think there's any truth into what she's saying about Democrats is the real question?
The short answer is yes and no. I mean, I don't want to make it about me, but I will say, look, somebody that has well, let me say this, not wrong from a messaging standpoint, but there's a lot of Democrats who support and help financially who care about the ideals of the party.
Yeah.
If they were only dealing with their own economic interests, they wouldn't be Democrats. But they support what President Clinton, President Obama were trying to do on education, what they were trying to do on universal health care, what they were trying to do on children's health care. So there's at one level a small Y yes, and an overall, that's not really the problem. Do you know what you believe? I'll give you an example. Take education.
Yeah.
I don't think you can believe in equity as a principle, which is what I think actually Democrats do believe, and be totally acceptable to the mediocrity in our schools. You have a 30-year low on reading scores, a 30-year low on math scores, and nobody, for political reasons, wants to talk about it. They want to look at their shoes. They don't want to say, we created an on goal keeping schools closed in COVID much longer than other states, and the kids of our cities and the kids of our states are paying a consequence. Now, should we listen to all the interest groups associated with that? It's one of the worst crimes committed against our kids, where they've been set back 30 years. Now, we all believe in equity, walk around, equity, fairness, etc. Yeah. How do you get to equity? Let me ask you a question. You have young kids. My kids are all grown.
Of course.
You raise your kids at home. valuing education.
100%.
So they succeed.
I
at
mean, you know,
school.
I'm Indian as well, so yeah. This is. But what
no.
you've been saying is music to my dad's ears. By
yeah,
the
well,
way.
I actually like your parents more than I like you anyway. Okay, but my thing is, okay, let's deal with it all then. The critique is, yes, somewhat right, not totally right, but also there's parts of our party that don't want to take on interest groups, constituencies, and others that have had a role to play in setting our kids back.
No, I agree.
Okay.
Education is a legitimate shot. It is also one of the things that if you establish a great public school and education system in the country, it raises the floor for everybody. This is
Well, you can't have equity
yeah.
and mediocrity in the same box.
Right.
Now, the other thing is, look, when you look at all the economists that talk about dealing with wealth disparity or income disparity, and they're not the same.
Yes.
There are two issues. One is taxes. The other is education. It's why when I was mayor, we created full-day pre-K, full-day kindergarten, which never existed, and we created the first city. You get a B average, you earn it,
Yeah.
you get free community college. We also had a universal plan, so every kid had a post-high school education plan. You couldn't get your diploma unless you showed a letter of acceptance from college, community college, branch of the armed forces, or vocational education. And everybody, not just your children and my children, had a plan on what they did the day after they got their high school diploma.
When people strategize about politics, they talk about the moderate swing voter. There is this idea around the magical swing voter, this kind of unicorn that lives in Ohio that's voted red but waiting to vote blue. My question to you is this, and you can have this very real answer to me. What moderate voter is sitting in their kitchen in a swing state that voted for Donald Trump twice? Can this person really be swung?
Well, the people
blue?
that, let me say this, just for the record, if the criticism of the 2010, I don't particularly know all the remember the specifics of the 2010.
The financial crisis or the war?
The 2010 tax bill.
Okay.
But I do like to remind people that have, in our own party, that criticized President Obama and President Clinton, both of them won Ohio. They haven't won it since. They won it both times.
Yeah.
So if they're so smart about what's been wrong, two presidents that a lot of Democrats criticize for ruining our relationship with the blue-collar working-class families. We haven't won Ohio since either one of them ran.
Okay.
So that's one. Two, we haven't touched on this, but it's the whole cultural frame. There are voters, and I, as somebody that focused on swing/independent district, and it's relevant to 2026 going in. You're going to recruit candidates in districts. My guess is any district that Donald Trump, and I don't have all the data, but I would say won by 56% or less, that's a district I'd make sure there's a Democrat with a surfboard on that fits the profile of that district. And there is a voter in those districts who did vote for Donald Trump. But
twice.
Could be once, could be twice.
Okay.
But they're a swing district. It's what's got the whole tax bill that while we're sitting here all in a twirl, that is unhappy with both an untethered Donald Trump and a compliant Congress and the economic conditions in which we're talking about the price of Greenland and not the price of groceries. And that voter, based on whether we have the right candidate, can have voted for Donald Trump once or twice and still vote for a Democrat for Congress because what a lot of things have changed in their calculation.
Yeah.
And if that's not the case, then you're just going to accept a majority Republican Congress. I don't. There are those voters, and you have to do everything right. You have to set up the argument, recruit the right candidate, have the right resources from that donor class, and the capacity to compete for their heart, their mind. Now, a lot of us is around economics. I think there are two things I say. One is we've already talked about how the American dream is unaffordable and inaccessible.
Yes.
And the system is rigged against people having a shot at it.
Yeah.
We have to also acknowledge that in what was called a bucket of cultural issues, the world is moving incredibly fast at incredibly chaotic level, and people want order. Our party has been for too long, in my view, associated with a permissiveness when people feel the world around them, what their kids are experiencing, social media, etc., everything from social media to the homeless encampment, is in chaos. And there should be a voice because I'm going to break the news to you. I don't know if you know this, but people kind of like order over disorder. And they feel like the world around them, specifically driven by social media, but not alone, is out of control.
How do you have that represent order, but not be fascism? Because as you were saying those sentences, I could start to see the military fatigues come on. You know what I mean? There's that feeling for, but
that's
strong
a lot
men
of
do use it.
projection. Maybe you should see a therapist over that. Just
Maybe
because
I
I
do.
said people like order, all of a sudden
No.
I got it. Fascism is that's a big swing and a big critique. I wasn't saying that, but people. Well, I don't know. You and I are sitting here. Governor Newsom, after being governor for 6 years, just came out for eliminating homeless encampments. I don't think you think he has a military fatigue on him.
Sure.
You have a mayor of this city that you're doing this show in, who's the front runners talking about law and order. That's also happened in San Francisco, who now got elected. So you have a lot more people who have moved towards a level on public safety that doesn't go around defunding the police, but actually supporting the police through community policing. You have a lot more people that are dealing with the quality of life around the neighborhoods and communities that's actually affected the way people live lives with homeless encampments and drug markets. So you may think of it as fascism, and not to get my back up, but for a lot of other people, they would like to have a quality of life that allows them to raise their kids in the city.
Is there a way, people always talk about this, about are you going further left? Are you going further right?
I think that's crazy.
You don't accept the framing. You're
No,
like,
I think. Well, let me ask you a question.
Right.
I sometimes get the attack. Oh, you're just this. You're just a centrist. I created free community college. Is that a centrist, left or right issue?
I would think that's a progressive issue.
What do I call it? A moving forward issue.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a difference. So, some people, I don't know. I created pre-K. We raised the minimum wage in the city. Then when lawyers said you couldn't do it, we did it, and we never got challenged. We raised it.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't consider. I get the philosophical. To me, it's whether you're moving forward, whether you're moving back, and are enough people moving forward. And I don't mean to go back to President Clinton. I worked for him.
Totally.
His line in 1996 for re-elect was building a bridge big enough and strong enough to the 21st century that everybody can get across. So while I say to you, I don't buy left, center, or whatever, progressive versus moderate, to me are we moving forward?
Yeah.
Or are we going sliding back? And I do actually think, and this gets to a separate topic, I was thinking about this today.
Yeah.
As they're thinking about adding another $3.5 trillion to the debt. A big argument in the future is going to be we're going to have to stop borrowing from the future and start investing in it. And that's a theme that as Democrats, I think we should start talking about a lot more.
You were talking about this desire for order and for things to work and for things to, be functioning in society in our biggest cities. There is also the subtext of that I'm reading is an appeal to the moderate. You have to appeal to the moderate base. But Harris did that in 2024. She went on 60 Minutes. She says, I have a block. She did the whole, she did the whole, she campaigned with Liz Cheney and it didn't work.
I don't buy that critique.
Okay.
Now, I don't mean to but I'm going to do a quick presidential history. Okay?
Please.
Okay. John Kennedy goes to Texas, and address
John F. Kennedy, President Kennedy in the 60s.
And address in the campaign that he would not be a Catholic president, but a president who's Catholic. It was a big,
huge moment,
threshold moment, and he had to show that. Given at that point, Catholics also overwhelmingly vote Democrat, and that he was not going to take direction in his presidency from the Vatican. Bill Clinton, 40% of his advertising as ending welfare as we know it. He's following Jimmy Carter, Walter Mondale, Michael Dukakis. It's a moment to say I'm a new Democrat. That was one illustration, adding 100,000 community police officers, and then what's now become an abbreviated Sister Soldier. President Obama in 2008, he's running. He talks about parenting and fatherhood, where a lot of people jump down his throat about how dare you're scapegoating. And as recently also in the last election with Kamala Harris. And he has to deal with his issue of his own Pastor Wright, and give an address, etc.
All right.
But so all three successful presidents anchored themselves, I call it, in mainstream values. And I do think for Democrats, could be wrong with this assessment, it is important to show some semblance, especially given that we have a party built on coalition building, of being anchored, rooted in mainstream values, willing to tell a member of the constituency when they're wrong. And it is almost for the voters a permission slip to have the rest of the agenda on economics, etc., heard. Now, again, I'm a product of my experience, could be wrong, lessons learned, possible. I don't think Bill Clinton's message about a middle-class tax cut or this is, as he said in 1992 in this city, when he accepted the nomination, if you work hard, play by the rules, raise your kids to know right from wrong, this is your moment, this is your time.
Yeah.
I do think his statements on welfare, on reform, on crime, etc., were permission slips for the economics to get heard.
Yeah.
I would argue that was also true for Barack Obama. And so I'm not, when you say, oh, that's like fascism, and I know you meant it slightly as a joke, but I'm going to now use it as a foil.
Sure.
But I do think if you want a majority in the House in 2026 and that Trump voter, now it's a little less for legislative, but it still matters. And one of the reasons, like in 2006, we recruited people out of the national security fields, Afghanistan and Iraq, war veterans, CIA, and other type of intelligence agencies, because it grounded them in their biography with a narrative that was from a value system, allowed the rest of the agenda to get heard. Every one of those candidates we recruited, a lot of Democrats yelled at me, oh, they're not real Democrats. They voted for a minimum wage. They voted for Nancy Pelosi to be speaker.
Yeah.
They voted for the rest of their colleagues to have the gavel.
Yeah.
They voted against the surge in Iraq. So, so to me, and I know you said it kind of not tongue in cheek or whatever.
Yeah, I was joking.
I get it. But there is that criticism, and in a serious way, the desire for order is to understand where voters live their lives.
Sure.
And if you think people, and this gets back to the critique about 2024, you told me the stuff about Kamala. There was a reason that ad about she says they and them and I'm for you. There's a reason that ad resonated. It struck a nerve that because people thought we were too obsessed with a very minor set of issues and made them front and center rather than things that a family was facing. Schools aren't back to where they were pre-COVID. Their spouses are sitting in the dining room working as if it's their office. Their whole lives have been getting. And we're talking about a set of issues that just are not primary.
Right.
And we didn't, not only not primary, we grounded ourselves all the way on the extreme. And we have to acknowledge that critique.
It's very interesting because everybody...
If you want to be the majority, you can tell people they're wrong. That's one way to do it.
Sure. You're allowed to do that. I mean...
That's an electoral strategy hasn't been tried before. You're wrong, you're full.
What I'm actually trying to crack is what I'm seeing macro. And again, it's called Hasan Minhaj Doesn't Know. So I don't know. That's what the DK means. But I am noticing, and what I'm trying to, as a comedian, we try to be a reflection of the times and the people. Bernie and AOC, they're on this thing called the Stop Oligarchy Tour. And there's a lot of energy around that. And it seems like what I am determining from that movement and that collective consciousness from the people is they got the finger pointed at the executive C-suite penthouse class. These people are the root of the problem, and we do need fair and equitable wages. The middle class has been hollowed out. We're not getting a fair.
Can I say one?
So I wanted to ask you is where do we point the finger and where's the shaft coming from? Because this is really what it's about.
So as both the person in politics, the strategist, etc.
Yeah.
You would agree that Chicago's kind of a working class bungalow belt city. The Pope just came from that, right?
Yeah, sure. I
represented the city as mayor.
Yeah.
Bridgeport, Porridge Park, Jefferson Park, places that cops, firefighters, teachers, garbage men, nobody at the L stops, at the grocery store, the cafe, has ever used the word oligarch. They call them rich people.
Sure.
Okay, but no, you say that. We suck at marketing. Okay, why can you not use rich? I mean, oligarch may feel great when you submit your PhD
but she
thesis.
did wear the dress that said "Eat the rich," so that didn't go well either.
But no, it got an ethics report.
Yeah, that didn't go well either.
But so my thing is, the critique gets back to this is why I say our critique is the same. The system is rigged for the people at the C-suite, and not only for them, for their kids, and that's exactly where you should point it, and rightfully so. Yeah. And they are going to scrap and fight to hold on to it. Now, you're looking at the guy that authored, Bernie co-sponsored it for me when I was a member of Congress. It was my bill, reimportation of pharmaceutical drugs. It was the only time that the pharmaceutical industry was ever beat on the House floor when the Republicans were majority. When I sponsored the bill, we built a bipartisan coalition, passed the bill over Tom DeLay's objections and the pharmaceutical industry. So the critique is the same. There are some places we agree on policy, some places we disagree, probably more we disagree, et cetera. But the critique about the system, who's responsible and who gets the benefit of it, and that the system is rigged against everybody else is not wrong. I think the most telling sign, we often divide our politics college, non-college educated.
Right. That was an old framing, but yes. Yes.
Black, white, or minorities versus whites.
Sure.
Urban, suburban, rural, or urban, suburban. Okay. Male, female. To me, the killing of the United Health executive told you everything.
Okay.
The real break in the division is elite/establishment versus everybody else.
Right.
The idea that somebody was killed in cold blood, who had family and kids, and you're cheering the killer, told you the amount of rage that exists. Not justified. It's absolutely wrong. We should have come to everybody that kind of said, oh, you can understand that. No, you're not allowed to kill somebody. You're not allowed to kill somebody cold-blooded. It's called murder, and you've got to be held accountable. But it does tell you how there's a division that goes beyond college.
People were cheering. His DMs were flooded.
There's a division that goes beyond college and non-college educated, beyond ethnicity, beyond gender, beyond geography of where you live. It's the elite versus everybody else. And there's a seething anger, and there's a reason to be angry. It doesn't justify the killing, and the guy that did it is a murderer and should be held accountable.
I'm going to throw this out there. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but if you run for president, so much of that presidency, and again, this is a hypothetical, it may or may not, of what comes with the presidency and running for president, is this idea from the American people, we want new ideas and fresh blood and new ideas. Do you think if you run for president, people will think of you as someone who represents the establishment?
So, I said, I said to President Obama once, it was like the darkest moment of healthcare, the things just coming apart at the same. And I said, people hate the status quo. They're not too excited by change either. And they kind of got us right where they want. So it's a fair analysis on both sides. Can I be change?
Yeah.
Or am I, all my experience comes with a benefit and it comes with a liability. And like everything in our lives, your strengths are your liabilities as well.
Ambassador Rahm Emanuel, thank you so much. That was a fun one.